You can actually go with any of the shares like equity shares or preference shares or even debentures. Now, what is prospectus? Prospectus means invitation. You need to actually have an invitation. So Sebi will always think about the investors, not about the company at large. The application money is to be received by the banker of the company. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I'm Vidhyaashram from the Department of Business Studies in Vidhyaashram PU College, the Temple of Excellence. Welcome to the new session. Here in this session, you will be experiencing all the new topics, that is all about the capital subscription. Now, until here, you have learned about the documentation, the registration process, what is memorandum of association, article of association, which are the documents, what are the procedure, why the signature and the consent is very important. Now, you will actually come across the special topic and very important topic that is called capital subscription. Now, when you have gone with the sources of finance as a chapter, I have told you what exactly a capital subscription is. Whenever the company wants to raise fund, I'll be very specific when I say that a company wants to raise fund. It is the public company. The public company can raise the required fund from the public by means of issue of shares and debentures. For doing the same, it has to issue a prospectus. It has to issue what? Prospectus. Now, what exactly a prospectus is? Now, prospectus is an invitation. So, the company will give an invite to the public saying that you can actually be a member, you can actually be a shareholder, you can actually go with any of the shares like equity shares or preference shares or even debentures. So here what happens is a prospector, which is an invitation, which is what? An invitation to the public to subscribe the capital. They can subscribe the capital of the company and undergo various other formalities. So that is what the capital subscription is. Now, steps required to raise funds. Now, this is the same topic which we have done in source of finance. So here I'll tell you what, students. This is the 7th chapter, but source of finance is the 8th chapter, which is deleted for your examination in the 2020 because of the pandemic. But let me tell you, please go back, learn source of finance, because source of finance is a very important and interesting chapter. Then you will understand what exactly these things are. The first one is about Sebi approval. Now, what is Sebi? Sebi is all about securities and exchange board of India, right? That is called Sebi. Now, Sebi need to actually give his approval saying yes, you can go for it. Next is filing of prospectus. Now, what is prospectus? Prospectus means invitation. You need to actually have an invitation. Next one is appointment of bankers, brokers, underwriters. What is that? Bankers, brokers, underwriter. Now, why? Whenever you go with any of the raising fund, the fund will be transferred to the bank. That's why you should know which is the bank you are supposed to go with. So that's why bankers. Next is brokers. You need to sell your shares. That is why you need somebody called intermediaries, that is a brokers, who will actually enhance your shares price and also will make sure that your shares will be sold in the market. Next one is underwriter. If your company isn't good, people, they don't want to buy your shares. Now what happens is you need to have a minimum subscription. So you will actually request the underwriters. Now underwriters will buy those shares and they'll keep it. So that is why you should appoint whom? The banker, the broker and underwriters. Next one is minimum subscription. Now the rules of the Companies Act also says that you need to maintain a minimum balance. You need to maintain a minimum balance and minimum things what the public should actually take. When it comes to a private company, the minimum subscription is 1 lakh rupees. But when it comes to a public company, the minimum subscription by the public is how much? 5 lakh rupees. Next is application to stock exchange. Now we are talking more about the public company. Now private company will never come to the stock exchange. Please make sure that private company, their shares will not be sold or it cannot be transferred. That is what the private company characteristic is. That's why it will not go for the stock exchange. Only public company can be listed in the stock exchange. The last one is allotment of shares. How is that you will allot the shares also you will get to know. So we'll go for a quick. One is the Sebi approval. Second is filing or filling the prospectors. Then we have appointment of bankers, brokers, underwriter, minimum subscription, application to the stock exchange, and the last one is allotment of shares. So what is the first one? Sebi. As I said, Sebi means what? Securities and Exchange Board of India, which is the regulatory authority in our country. So what is Sebi? Sebi is a regulatory authority. What is Sebi? Sebi is what? Regulatory authority. And here all these scams or whatever is done by the company, the Sebi is the only person who will actually go and check whether there is any fraudulent act or mistake or fraud. All these things will be checked by whom? Sebi. That's why they act like a police in the companies. And here what happens is in our country and has issued guidelines. So Sebi is the one who will actually go with rules and regulations. So rules and regulations. And they'll be giving what? The guidelines to the company so that the company should be properly managing all the documents which is legal and it should run the business legally. And here what happens is the disclosure of information and investor protection. So Sebi will always think about the investors, not about the company at large. So if anything happens, we can actually go to the Sebi and register a complaint against any company. So please understand, Sebi approval is very much needed. Second is filing of prospectus. Now here, prospectus is any document described or issued as a prospectus, including any notice. That is, you will actually get these things. The first one is notice. Okay. Second one is circular. Then you will have something called advertisement or other document. So all these things are what? Advertisement documents. They are the one which we call it as a prospectus. Inviting deposits from the public or inviting offers from the public for the subscription or purchase of any shares or debenture. Those things are called as a prospectus. So you need to actually go with filing the prospectus. Now it can be the notice, so that issuing of shares or attracting the public to come and buy the shares, or actually getting an offer from the public itself for any kind of a thing, that is called the prospectus. Next is appointment of bankers, brokers, underwriters. So I'll just tell you a story here, understand. Let's say this is a banker. Okay, now he is broker and this person is underwriter. That how all the three things will happen, I'll just tell you in one example. Now whenever you go with any of the raising funds, right here, raising funds from the public is a stupendous task. The application money is to be received by the banker of the company. So what happens here is, there is this company, this is company. Now whenever the company needs to raise anything, the company need to think about the three things. One is they need to actually find a banker. Banker means any kind of a banking partner. Now banker will actually get all the deposits. He'll get what? deposits from the public. From whom? The public. Now next one is the company need to actually think about the broker. Reason is what? The broker is the only one who will actually sell the shares. He will sell the shares. Now, he has started to sell the shares. Let's go with the shares. Shares is done. Supposingly, if the company is a new company and people, they don't want to sell the shares, but you need to start the company. Now, any shares which are not being sold by the broker, now what happens is there is a person called underwriter. There's a person called underwriter. He will actually buy shares. He will buy shares. And when he buys the shares, now the minimum subscription is done. Now the company can start its incorporation and commencement, and then it can start its business. So you need to have what? Appointment of banker. Now, which is the bank you are supposed to actually go with? The broker, who is the intermediary, the third party who will help you, or the next one is underwriter. If public will not buy it, the underwriters will do it so that you can start your company. You don't need to wait for the public to buy your shares. Next one here is minimum subscription. So what is this minimum subscription? In order to prevent companies from commencing business with inadequate sources, it has been provided that the company must receive applications for a certain minimum number. That means you cannot start a company with say 100 rupees or 1000 rupees, or even say for 50,000 rupees. What is that you should have? You should have a minimum, right? Minimum money if you have, that is the given by whom? Given by the Companies Act. Companies Act, okay, of 1956, as well as now we have is 2013 Companies Act. Now here you need to understand that there is something called a private company and you have a public company. The minimum subscription for a private company is say 1 lakh rupees and minimum here is 5 lakh rupees. 5 lakhs. So that is what public company. And this is private company. So to start a private company, you can start with 1 lakh rupees as a minimum subscription. You need to actually raise fund through the public. And to start the public company, you are supposed to raise how much? 5 lakh rupees. Here what happens is, in order to prevent companies from commencing business with inadequate resources, it has been provided that the company must receive application for a certain minimum number of shares before going ahead with allotment of shares. That means they shouldn't allot any shares. Before that, they are supposed to fulfill the minimum subscription. Next is application to stock exchange. Now you understand we have BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange, and NSE, National Stock Exchange. Now you need to get an approval here because all the shares which are brought in the primary market will be sold in the secondary market. The secondary market is called stock exchange. At least here what happens is you are supposed to at least register with one of the stock exchange. An application is made to at least one stock exchange for permission to deal in its shares or debenture. If such permission is not granted before the expiry of 10 weeks, how many weeks? 10 weeks. 10 weeks from the date of closure of subscription list, the allotment shall become void. That means they will cancel it. They will cancel it. That is 10 weeks. How many weeks? 10 weeks. Allotment shall become void. When I say this word void, void means cancellation. And all the money received from the applicants will have to be returned to them within 8 days. That means when it is cancelled, what is that you should do? Within 8 days, you should return it. Right? So that is what the stock exchange will tell you. But if all the applications have been taken and your minimum subscription, everything is done properly, everything is done, then the stock exchange will approve that yes, you can start your company, and you can actually go for the buying and selling of shares can happen in the stock exchange. Next one is allotment of shares. In case of number of shares allotted is less than the number applied for, or where no shares are allotted to the applicant, the excess application money, if any, is to be returned to the applicants or adjusted towards allotment money due from them. That means you need to have a proper allotment strategy, right? Now, whether you have more shares or less applicants, or more applicant, less shares, what is that you should do is whenever there is exceeding terms, right, you are supposed to be very careful. When the money is being given to you from the shareholders, you need to also allot the shares to the shareholders. Sometimes what happens is a company, when it is listed as a public company, there are many people who want to buy the shares of the company. Now here what happens is the share prices are like this. One is called as the face value. Face value. Another is called as a market value. So if we have two types of market, one is primary market and one more is secondary market. Now primary market, in the sense, what happens here is the primary market is a market where the shares are brought for the first time. That is, you will actually buy them for the first time. And when you buy them for the first time, what happens is the share value will always be the face value. It will not be the market value. But after buying it, when you make your company as a listed company and a public company and it goes to a stock exchange, then what happens is the secondary market is a place where buying and selling of shares happens. That is the shares of the primary market. Then here what happens is when there are too many people who are applying for the shares and you don't have those much of shares, what happens is in case of the number of shares allotted is less than the number applied for, that means the application is more, or where no shares are allotted, that means shares are not allotted at all, but what happens is allotted to the applicant, the excess application, the more applications, what happens is money, if any, is to be returned. Now what is that you should do? You have taken the money but you have not allotted it, you are supposed to pay it back. So you should be very, very careful. You cannot cheat the public at large. The stock exchange and the Sebi is always there to check that are you doing the proper justice or not. So these are the procedures which are very, very important when it comes to capital subscription. If you have any doubt regarding this, please call us. We're always there to help you. Thank you so much. Revise this topic once or twice, you will actually get it. Learn the subject as a knowledge. Don't learn as just for learning, right? Thank you so much. I'll see you when I see you.